Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Choir rehearsal. Nice to see you all. Interesting to hear the conversation beforehand. Absolutely hilarious as ever. Just first of all, a big thank you for all those of you who've struggled with cameras and iPads and internet and routers and all sorts of things trying to get files through to me. I'm not quite sure how many files I've downloaded, but it's somewhere between 300 and 400 files in the last few days. I think there might be one or two more still to come, but let's have them all. That would be really good to see any last stragglers that we've got there. Suffice it to say, I've got an awful lot of work to do to pull all that together, so don't expect it to be right tonight. What somebody was saying a few minutes ago, as they were having a little bit of a gasp beforehand, oh yes, I'm sure we'll hear it tonight. Good game. Now I'm just working on the audio at the moment, and then I shall start assembling lots of mugshots, so you'll see how all that works. Anyway, thank you for your bravery in setting up as a one-man TV show. It's a real soul-bearing experience, but there's lots of good material there, so I'm looking forward to pulling all that together. Anyway, it's time for a bit of a warm-up. So if you'd like to stand up and be ready, here comes your warm-up for this evening. So let's start with some shaking out. Hands first, really good shape. Get them really moving. Arms. I'm going to have to stand up for this. Feet and legs. Again, so you get that sense of relaxation in the joints. Nothing is too stiff at this point. It's really got to be just having a marvellous sense of space about it. Let's do a little bit of facial massage. So let's start again around here, round the eyes, right round the eye sockets, over the top. Really stretch the skin, generate a little bit of heat as you go around the temples. Feel that sense of tension that can build up around there. Yeah. Round in front of the ears and yawn. Stretch again. Right the way around here, around the mouth, and then under the ears, yawn. Feel that jaw nice and open. Good. And then let's also just have a think about this part of the breathing mechanism on the breastbone. If you take two fingers, put them on the breastbone, and let's just say a few words. Let's say, "How now, brown cow?" And feel that lovely sense of vibration going on the breastbone. Here we go again. "How now, brown cow?" Really good sense of energy there. And while we're at it, let's put the fingers just under the rib cage. Breathe in and out again. Now we're going to breathe into 3 and hiss out while I count up to 10. Breathe in, 2, 3, hiss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Keep the fingers there. Let's breathe in to 2 and out to 12 this time. In, 2, hiss, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And now we're going to do into 1 and out to 15. So a really good solid breath at the beginning. Fingers still here. Breathe in. Go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Good. Now, we're going to do some exercises with straws. Now, I've got some really rather nice, very posh metal straws here. I like these because, unlike the plastic ones, these ones don't get thrown away afterwards. But the reason we're going to use this is that we're going to talk about actually using the breath and how you use the breath and focusing the air in a very concentrated way. So if I just use the straw, I'm simply initially just going to breathe through it. Lots of lovely warm air coming out the bottom there. Now if we sing through it, we're actually being very careful about how we use the sound through this. So I'm just going to demonstrate for you first of all. So I'm quite limited in the amount of air that can come out. So your turn to use the straw now. Let's try it. And let's try that going the other way this time. Now this time we're going to do some slides whilst using the straw. So first of all, going up and down a fifth. So I'm going to do your turn. Upper semitone. And another. One more. And another one. Go again. And one more. Now you might well be feeling some tingling going on in the lips as you do that, as that energy focuses to get all the air flowing through the voice and down through the straw. Let's do some bigger slides this time. We're going to do octave slides. Here we go.
Mute.
That's got a real tingle going on my upper lip. Now, if you try and breathe in the same way, let's now just sing. So not using the straw, but making the air flow in the same sort of way. Here we go. Now, let's try changing that very slightly now to be doing brrr, the sort of sound you make if you are cold on a frosty morning. So let's do brrr, and the air flows in just the same way. Here we go. Brrr, 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 brrr. So that's been a really good exercise for getting the air flowing in a really even and controlled way. Now, let's just do some more normal singing exercise. We're going to do some resonance exercises first of all. Ya, 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 ya. That's got a good ya on the front of it. Here we go. 1 and 2. Ya, 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 ya. Ya, 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 ya. Ya, 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 ya. Good. And the purpose of that is to get the tongue moving really in a relaxed way forward to back. Ya, 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 ya. And keeping the jaw nice and relaxed, which is always good for your singing technique. Good. I hope that's been a useful warm-up just to get one or two things working and then really opening you up for the rehearsal that's about to follow. Good. Always good to get the voices working at this point in the evening. And we're going to start this evening with No Small Wonder, which is in the Noel book. And it's on page 105. But in fact, I'd like to start tonight with a bit of verse 2, where we're all singing together, and we'll come back to verse 1 in just a little while. I don't know whether any of you have sung this before. I think at least one person in the choir has, because somebody requested it when we did the poll of possible things to do. It's a very gorgeous piece. It's really good if you like interesting harmony, as you will see in just a moment. So what I thought we'd do is, just to get us going, we'd just sing through a bit of verse 2, which starts on page 106 in bar 19. And just to get a feel for it. So let's just have a little sing through first and then we'll see where we go. So that's your chord for small in bar 19. Okay, let's just have a go through this verse. Here we go then. 1, 2. So you can see it's got some really juicy harmony at the end of the verse, and it's slightly different in every verse that we sing. So first of all, let's just sort out a few crucial details, like where we're going to breathe. So in verse 2, small wonder the kings, breath in bar 21. Small wonder they bore the gold and the incense. So no breath at bore in bar 23. Breath after incense, the myrrh to adore, and then another breath in 27. And then each of these verses ends a little bit slower, so let me just play the juicy harmony that starts at the end of bar 27. Just have a listen to this. And I slow down a little bit through those bars. Let's just learn those notes, shall we? Let's start first with basses and sopranos together. Okay, so you both start with that upward fifth. All right, end of bar 27, basses and sopranos, 1 and 2. Okay, so the ending is quite straightforward. So sopranos, you've got to divide as well. So you've got in unison to there, and then perhaps worth just the seconds singing that on their own for a moment. Second sopranos, 1 and 2 and. And then back up to the C with the others. Alright, good. And now let's put altos and tenors together. So you both start on that B at the end of bar 27. Altos and tenors, 1 and 2. So altos, there's just a tiny bit of division for you, isn't there? That just for that one chord, and then a lovely bright G when you go up to bar 31. Let's do altos and tenors one more time from the end of 27. 1 and 2. Breathe. Okay, so let's just do that little section, bar 27 through to the end of the verse with all 4 parts together. And that second chord is just really easy to get a little bit imprecise, so be careful with it. Watch the upward jumps. Here we go, 1 and 2. Good. And let's just check the notes earlier on in that verse, because there's quite a lot of scrunching going on as well here at the beginning of the verse. So far so good. Tenors, watch the upward sixth there. Wonder they bore. Nice bright C sharp for the tenors there. Altos, F natural. And it's really important that you're right in the middle of these notes. Yeah, don't hedge them at all. Let's try everybody from the beginning of the verse. Bar 19, 1 and 2. Breath here. Run through. Breathe. Good. So let's go back to the very beginning, and the first verse is just with the sopranos on their own, but you've got virtually the same as what you've sung already, so this really shouldn't take too long. The breathing sopranos is small wonder the star, run through, small wonder the light, breath. The angels in chorus run through, the shepherds in fright, breath. But stable and manger for God, breath, no small wonder. So it's basically 4-bar phrases until it gets to that slightly different pattern at the end there. So here's the introduction sopranos to verse 1. Breathe now. So actually, after that the second verse that we did, that should be very straightforward for you. Just watch the page turns, second sopranos, where it divides. Stable and manger for God. No, and then tie it over that quaver there. All right, good. Now let's have a look at verse 3, which is where things start getting a little bit more awkward. As you will see, the harmony starts, well, it's actually in unison at the beginning of the verse, but as you turn the page, every possible toy under the evening stars comes out to play. So you've really got to learn some harmonies here. Verse 3, this is bar 35, okay, 1 and 2. So if you like your scrunchy harmony, those of you budding composers at home, that's a great one to learn from. So let's just break up that ending into little sections so that you can have a go at doing it. So as we turn the page 107 into 108, let's just do sopranos first of all, which should be quite straightforward until you get to about bar 45. Okay, sopranos 1 and 2. Be careful. Here we go. So let's have a look at the division first of all. If we go from the end of bar 43, seconds, that's awkward, isn't it? D, my poor heart, right up a fifth there, and then no small wonder. So let's do the two soprano parts from the end of bar 45, sorry, bar 43, 1 and 2. Right, let's do please the altos next from the end of the previous page, the power and the glory, starting on the A, and you've got quite a lot more DVC in this verse alto. So the power, altos, 1 and 2. Divide here. That's definitely one to do some personal practice on alto. So look at what happens from the end of the top line. And that F natural to the B is the most awkward one. That that augmented fourth at that point. So really careful with that. Let's just do one more time. Altos from the end of the previous page. The power, 1 and 2. Divide. Okay, let's do a little bit of tenors now from the very end of page 107. The power, the glory. Tenors, 1 and 2. Up you go. Breathe. So right at the end there, second tenor's no small, a diminished fifth that time. So again, just needs to be a little bit careful, but the rest of your part's actually quite straightforward. Let's do the basses from the very end of page 107. The power, 1 and 2. So actually the most difficult phrase is but all to redeem my poor heart. So that minor sixth going upwards down a chromatic scale until the D to the C when it's a full tone. The rest of it's pretty straightforward. Let's try all four parts together then in verse 3. I'm going to play from bar 32 and see if we can put that together. Here we go. Nice big breath. 2. So there we are. It's a very, very juicy little number, that piece. So what I'm going to do is to run the conductor track on that one so you can have a go at singing it right the way through with the all the tempo changes. Now, one of the things I just need to explain to you, most of the stuff we had in the Haydn was actually quite straightforward tempo-wise. This is not. So I've divided the click track. So instead of just click, click, click all the way through, sometimes when it's getting slower you'll hear click, 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 click. Okay, so listen out for that and it'll just help you to learn how I'm doing the tempo. All right, so if you're ready, let's give that a little run all the way through. Here we go. Big breath. So hopefully you'll see why I've subdivided the clicks there. It just makes it much easier to see your way through the changes in tempo. So yeah, it's rather a lovely piece that. I hope you like the harmonies of that. I thought you'd get some fun out of that, so that's good. Okay, let's go on to something that's a little bit more familiar territory, a little bit of Messiah. And I'd like you to find page 42. There's nothing quite like Messiah for making you realise that Christmas is on the way, even if Christmas this year is, let's face it, going to feel rather different than it has done in many, many recent years. How bizarre that's all going to be. So, usually when we're doing Messiah, I usually ask if there's anybody with us who has not performed Messiah before. So if you haven't performed Messiah before, perhaps you can just say so in the chat. It would be quite interesting to see whether we've got anybody this year who's not Messiahed before, because it's a piece that we in City Choir know very, very well. But nevertheless, as we all know, there's plenty of things to rehearse. So let's have a little look at the score, and we'll just look through a few things. There we go, one or two names coming out there. Anne, Gillian, good luck. You'll be having a very easy route into it this year. Quite often we do the entire, well, we normally do the entire performance of Messiah, every single movement, and we do it on about 3 half-hour chunks of rehearsal or thereabouts. So actually you've got it made for you this year. Enjoy. So the breathing in this movement, For Unto Us a Child is Born, is pretty straightforward really. There's lots of little phrases and then rests where you might expect, but towards the end, let's just make sure we've all got this marked. If you just move on to page 50, and I'm talking about bar 83, would you just make sure that we've got no breath? Be upon his shoulder and his name shall be called. So it's about 10, 11 bars before the end of the piece, just before we get to wonderful. No breath after shoulder. And then in the very last bit that you sing, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. So again, there's no breath after Father at that point. Those are two crucial bits and pieces that you need to think about. And I'll talk about some joins between sections in a moment as well. Now, the way we do the semiquaver runs in this, and it's going to be very difficult for you to understand this when you're doing it on your own, but we split firsts and seconds in terms of how we articulate it. So if you are a first soprano, a first alto, first tenor or first bass, do it exactly as it's printed. You don't need to know any more. If you're a second, I would like you please to be na 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 in all the semiquaver runs, okay? Can I just check you can still hear me, because I've just had a little sign on my computer come up to say that my microphone's playing up. Can you still hear me? Just give me a thumbs up, somebody, if you can. Just, yeah, that's fine. Good, thank you. Good. So when you get to the semiquaver run, so for example, bar 14, where the sopranos start in, us a child is born, no, 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 no. Okay, that's what I'm expecting from all the second sopranos. Just know that we're going to be doing that. Okay, a couple of other little bits of admin first of all. Will you watch when you have those little phrases that go unto us? Just make sure that the S is neither early nor late, but that it has a little gap before it. Let's just all say unto us with a little gap before the S, and one. Unto us. Okay, so that's how I want to time those little phrases when you've got them. And finally, not last but not least, on the admin section, would you find bar 37? And that is just after the first. Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And when you get to peace, what we need to do is to make sure that the part that's carry on immediately, so in bar 37 it's the altos, sing Prince of Peace, and don't bother putting the S on at all. okay? But all the other parts, Prince of Peace, a separate s on the end where the alto starts singing, okay? So there's one of them there. There is another one at bar 53 where the tenors carry on, so they Prince of P at that point and everybody else puts the s on. There is another one at bar 72, okay? So those are the bits and pieces you just need to be careful of to make sure you know what's going on, okay? Those little moments with the semiquavers. Let's do one from each part. Let's have a look at bar 15, where you've got, well, we'll go from bar 13 actually. For unto us a child is born. Okay, lots of breath before you start. Bar 13 sopranos, 2, 3 and 4 and. I'm getting all sorts of weird bits and pieces here, and my keyboard seems now. Oh God. Right, hold your horses a moment. I think I know the solution. Sorry about this, guys. I wonder if that solved it. Bingo! Hopefully we're there. Let's try once again, sopranos. Bar 13, 2, 1 and 2 and. So that's where we need lots of good articulation. Let's try one from the basses now. So basses, let's do your 19. And be careful as you turn the page where it gets a bit complicated again. Basses, 1 and 2 and. So lots and lots of work down here. One of the things I've noticed just listening to some of the recordings that have come in is just making sure that you really are breathing as well as you would do if you were in the choir. And sometimes you just sort of forget to breathe in the right place. So make sure that you've got that sense of energy down underneath basses. Let's do one now for the tenors, bar 38. Where you come in with your semiquaver on. It's a nice short one for you tenors. Bar 38, 1 and 2 and. That's mercifully short, isn't it? I'm sure you're pleased about that one. And altos, let's do yours in bar 56. Okay, 56, 1 and 2 and. Altos, yours is slightly fiddly because there is a definite key change in the middle of all that, isn't it? So all those F naturals. So what's that change in bar 60? Let's do the alto one more time. 1 and 2 and. Just to prove that I could actually play it. I seem to fluff it up every other time. So let's now do some work together on one or two of the other bits and pieces. I want to find those dotted rhythms that come on and the government. So would you find bar 26, please, or letter C? And I want to do a little rhythmic exercise with you first of all. So I want you to just practice clapping semiquavers. Let's try that. Good, nice to see you all applauding me, that's very kind. Now what I want to do is actually to try singing, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. just so that we get used to making it as dotty as that. Clapping and saying the words for the tenor part in bar 26. And 1. And the government shall be upon his shoulder. So really want to get that really crisp. Let's try then tenors from that point, and then the sopranos, altos, basses all coming in with that, okay? Bar 26 and 1. Breathe in. Good, good. A little bit of balance to remind you about in bar 30. Altos, you need to put as much energy into bar 30 as you feasibly can, because it's really, really low in the range, where the basses are low too, but they'll make more noise down there. So would you make sure that it's got lots of energy down there? Really important that it's really crisp. Okay, good. That's covered most of the basses in this movement. Not basses, but basses, you know what I mean. So let's just give that movement a run through to give you a chance just to get the energy about it. Before we do it, what's the mood of this piece? For Unto Us a Child is Born, I don't want anybody singing this with a miserable face. It's got to be absolutely oozing with joy. It's got to have that fantastic from the heart, that lightness, that real sense of sort of gay abandon about it, which really brings the mood of the music out. So let's run the whole movement through and see how you get on with it. Here it comes. Messiah like you've never heard it before with the synthesized orchestra. So that's great fun. Now, did you notice through that I've actually put some cue markings along the bottom, so if you want to practice individual bits, I usually do sort of cue in from 2 bars before each of the main letters, so that I hope will help you just to find your way through the thing if you need to, so you can go through and do it section by section, because it's quite a long chunk otherwise. And similarly, in the backing tracks for the various carols, I put in the verse numbers underneath so you can scroll through and actually see exactly where the music's got to, because again, some of the verses sound quite similar when you're just sort of going through. It's quite difficult to find what you're doing. Okay, so time to move on to a different piece now, and we're back in Noel, and I'd like you to find page 69 in Noel, and it's a version of It Came Upon the Midnight Clear, which I don't suppose you will have sung before. You might have done, just conceivably. But it's a different tune to the version that you might know, and it's rather a sweet little arrangement, so I thought it'd be quite a nice thing to do. So let's start by having a little sing through this first verse, and the harmonies of this come back in the last verse, so that will be a useful bit of learning to do. And it's not too slow, so here's the introduction. So take a breath, here we go. So, unlike so many of the Rutter stroke Chilcott stroke Wilcox carols, this is a really good traditional carol. I think it's actually an American tune, if my memory serves me correctly. But it's lovely, simple verse settings, strophic settings, and it's got a lovely sense of that sort of pastoral lilt about it. So I don't think the notes are very difficult in this. Basses, I want to make sure that you're very precise with the harmonies on the bass there, and then there's little bits of chromatics for the tenors as well. Let's do basses and tenors first, just running through that first verse. 1 and 2. Nothing terribly remarkable or difficult in that. Just make sure that it doesn't lose its sense of pulse. Keep thinking 2 in a bar. And the breathing, always 4 bars to 1 breath. Just nice and straightforward. Let's do the altos and sopranos through that first verse as well. Sopranos, it does jump around a bit, so just get this tune into your heads, all right? 1 and 2. So hopefully that tune will be going into your heads nicely at this point. Let's have a look at verse 2. And this is sort of cumulative in verse 2. So the sopranos start us off, then the altos join, then the tenors. Make sure that you're reading in bass clef tenors when you come in though. And then the basses join us in the 4th phrase. So let's just have a little go. Here's the introduction to verse 2. Breathe in, sopranos. Altos join. Tenors join. And the basses join here. Good. Now I wonder if you can keep that second verse flowing along just as well when I play the little decorative parts that go in the accompaniment in that verse. So let's do the introduction to verse 2 again. And with something like this that is so straightforward, the text must be at the front of your minds. I want you to be thinking about that beautiful, simple stillness. Still through the cloven skies they come, with peaceful wings unfurled. Really delicate, but clear words. Don't let the consonants slow you down there. Here's the introduction to verse 2. Sopranos. Altos joining. Tenors joining. Good. Hopefully you're getting that lovely lilting style to it now. Now tenors, you've got to take the leading role in this next verse, and sopranos, you get to stand by and listen, but we need to make sure that the tenors are being beautifully smooth, as of course the tenors almost always are, and then altos and basses, you've got to sort out the accompaniment for this, and basses, don't make it too heavy, altos, make sure it's really, really rhythmic. Tenors, let's just do a little bit of that. I wish I could hear you at this point. Yet with the wars of sin and strife the world has suffered long. Not too much vibrato, just beautifully clear. Tenors, 1 and 2. Good. So as you see, basses, when you come to join in with that, the first basses join the tenors for that loud third phrase. So let's put the tenors with the altos and basses and just fit that together. Again, it's not very complicated, but it just needs to have that sense of real security and beautiful line for the tenors. So tenors, here is the introduction to your third verse. Breathe in. Nice and smooth, tenors. And let's go on to verse 4. Drop the dynamic. So the harmony version in that last verse is exactly the same as for the first verse, but it's got that little coda on the end. And you'll hear again the click track subdivides there, so you get tick, 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 so that you really can control that tempo. You'll get to have a try with that in just a moment. So let's just do the second half of that last verse. This is bar 70. When peace shall overall. Let's just, before we sing it, just look at the words. When. Can you pronounce the H in when? Do that for me now. When peace shall over. And all that, the enunciation of the consonants there is right at the front of the mouth. When, peace, right in the lips, shall, right in the teeth there, shall over all the earth. Keep it right at the front and you can sing really beautifully softly with incredible diction. Let's say the words in rhythm just for a moment from that point. Bar 70 saying the words, 1 and 2. When peace shall over all the earth its ancient splendours fling. And can you hear it? It's really at the front there, like a stage whisper. So let's sing from bar 70. When peace. Lots of air in there. We've done all these breathing exercises in the warm-ups over the last few weeks. Make use of that. The warm-ups are not just there to make a late start for the rehearsal. They're actually there to get the voice working and to get you being really disciplined about how you're doing it. Okay, when peace, 1 and 2 and... Okay, so let's see if we can pop all that together with the conductor track and just see if we can get that sounding really, really beautiful. Whoever happens to be on the melody, just warn you, there is a tendency, because of the big jumps in it, it came upon. It's tempting just to sort of slice that up a bit, and it really doesn't want that. It wants to be as smooth as you feasibly can. So I think first basses get part of the tune, tenors have it for a whole verse, otherwise it's sopranos. But just make sure that that absolute sense of line is maintained. That's really important. So here it comes all the way through. I hope that last little bit of click track didn't scare you when it suddenly gets louder to remind you that I'm slowing down. I wish I had a device that meant I could do that in a concert, that suddenly my conducting became louder and made you all watch when we're all going to slow down and somebody's looking the other way. That would be really useful. Good. Okay. So that's getting into some of the notes for Christmas. It's hard to believe it's going to be Christmas soon, isn't it? It doesn't quite feel like Christmas yet, but there we go. It's going to be really interesting over the next few days to see how all those recordings have got on. So thank you for doing all those bits and pieces. And depending on how easy you've found it, and I know some of you have had incredible stresses with it, we might conceivably slip another Christmas piece in if we think we've got time. We'll see how we go. What I'd be quite interested to know, and you might just like to think about this, is whether or not you'd like to do all the carols, whether you'd like to record them all together at the end, or whether one or two you might like to do a little bit early. It would make life easier for me, because then I wouldn't get millions and millions and millions of files all coming in at the same time. So have a think about that. It may be that we could do one or two just a little bit early and take the pressure off there. So have a think about that, and I'll ask you next week. Michael, are you there somewhere? I'm sure you are, because I saw you singing earlier on, I think. And did you want to say anything to the assembled numbers?
Hello, Adrian. Thank you very much. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, Adrian, very much. That hour went by really fast. The only little announcement I have is to do with our social. You know that we've got a social planned for the 4th of December, the Friday, 4th of December. We're calling it Not the Messiah because sadly we'll not be able to sing Messiah in Symphony Hall this first Friday of December the way we usually do. We always do. And so we want to have a little social where people show up on Zoom with a drink of some sort maybe and a few nibbles and share. But we want to structure it a bit. Otherwise, as you can imagine, it would be fairly chaotic. What we were thinking would be if people kindly offered something, a little party piece of some sort, no more than 5 minutes, something very simple, not solo singing. I think we all agree we don't want that, but anything else, maybe a magic trick, a limerick, a little anecdote. If you have an instrument like, that's easy to play, that I thought maybe if people had a simple instrument, like a recorder or a flute or something, where you could play a carol that we could sing along to, particularly if you picked one of the carols from C2C, one of the C2C books. I think I'm going to offer a few silly quiz questions, but it won't be complicated and it'll be just for laughs. Something that will give a bit of structure. And we're also still looking for a compere. And if we don't have a volunteer, then we will approach someone and invite them to volunteer in the very near future. So offers, please, offers of little things you're willing to do. As I said, 5 minutes max. So I'm sure you've all got a little bit of performance up your sleeves that you can share with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I mean, even if it's a lovely bit of Christmas poetry that's not too long, just something that would raise the spirits a little bit. And don't forget to bring a glass and a bottle. Yes. Most important. I can see lots of you nodding at this point, so really good. Good. Thank you very much for all your hard work tonight. And as I say again, thank you for
that's a great idea.
All the work of bits and pieces that you've been doing all week. Really appreciate that. And very happy to help. I actually went online on Sunday just to help people through with problems, and hopefully that'll be useful. Yeah. So really good. Nice to see you all. Keep well. And as usual, we'll leave the Zoom open 50 minutes or so, or until people have stopped watching. All right. Keep safe and look forward to seeing you next week, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, Janet.
Hello.
Bye.